Richard Lyons.
I'm Barbara Lyons.
I'm Ben Lyons.
And I'm Baby Daniels Lyons.
Hello, Kev here, welcoming you once again to the House of Hammer. Since diving deep into the seedy London Palladium jazz scene of a few episodes ago, I've taken to playing fast and loose with the rules. So here we go with all the stuff you probably never listened to at the end of the episode, which might just make your life that bit happier. First off, we have a very decent Patreon service with 2 tiers. The first will gain you access to the occasional article, what's on, our online screenings and prize quizzes. And then there's the Hidden Room tier. This gets you all of what I've just mentioned, plus hours of exclusive bonus content along with the occasional dip into the 1980 Hammer House of Horror TV series. We also have an online store that's allegedly guaranteed to make you 99.9% more stylish, the fashion equivalent of a popular detergent. All the links you need are in the show notes because if there's one thing you could say about our podcast, we're efficient. Ooh, while I think about it, you could use that for free when you tell your friends about us or leave a review on Apple Podcasts that somehow magically makes us more visible. It's the laser eye surgery of podcasting, you know. Now the housekeeping's out of the way, on with the show. And what a whopper! We've got a double bill for you, as we cover 2 Hammer comedies, Life with the Lions from 1954 and its 1955 sequel, The Lions in Paris. I must say I was quite excited about this because the idea of a big cat strolling down the Champs-Élysées on a Sunday afternoon does sound mighty appealing. And after all, there's a film from 2016 where a lion attacks Amsterdam, and I love that one. I'm not making this up. Ben Smokey and myself will watch just about anything. Sadly, it isn't, so we've all had to pack our safari gear away and do some serious research. And here with the first fruits of our labours is Ben.
Our journey through the rooms of the House of Hammer has already been something of a pleasant voyage of discovery for me, and, well, hopefully you. And my latest encounter with something what I had not previously heard of before is the Lyon family. Who were they? Well, it appears that they were very much the Kardashians of their day. Kind of. Life with the Lyons began life as a British radio series which premiered on the BBC on the 5th of November 1950 and would run until 1961. It's regarded as the UK's first situation comedy and was written by Baby Daniels, who starred in it alongside her real-life family, husband Ben Lyon and children Barbara and Richard. Daniels and her family played fictionalised versions of themselves, although the script drew on events from their own domestic lives to the extent that, for example, when the family moved home, the sitcom family moved too. The show attracted over 11 million listeners before being made into 2 feature films, then transferred to television and the West End stage. 5 series of the TV show were broadcast initially on BBC television before switching to ITV. It was the first TV show to ever cross between the channels. Sadly, however, only 6 episodes now survive in the TV archives. More happily, over 200 episodes of the radio series have survived, owing to a private collector having recorded and retained them. Anyway, that's a bit about the show, but the question remains, just who the hell were these people and how did they end up with their own sitcom? Let's start with Baby Daniels, or Baby Daniels Lyon as she was billed in the movies. She began her career in Hollywood during the silent film era as a child actress, and over the course of her 50-year career would appear in well over 200 films, in addition to her TV and radio work. At the age of 9, she starred as Dorothy Gale in the 1910 silent film The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, the earliest surviving film version of L. Frank Baum's 1900 novel. Making her name primarily as a musical star, she displayed an ability to adapt and survive in Hollywood when musicals began to go out of fashion in the early 1930s. And it was in 1930 when she married her husband, Ben Lyon. Ben Lyon was an actor who also transitioned from silent pictures to talkies, going on to play a leading role in many films of the 1930s. His real breakthrough came with the 1930 film Hell's Angels. It was a major success and brought Jean Harlow to prominence, but Lyon's performance as a heroic World War I aviator was also highly regarded. He would go on to do actual military service as a pilot in the 1930s and served as a lieutenant colonel in the US Air Force during World War II. As mentioned, Ben and Bibi married in 1930 and their daughter Barbara was born in September 1931. Barbara was born in Hollywood long before the Lyons made London their adopted home. Her appearances in the various forms of Life with the Lyons made her a star in her own right. In addition to acting, she would find popularity as a singer and had 2 UK hits in the mid-1950s, Stowaway and Letter to a Soldier. She also sang in her own TV series Dreamtime with Barbara and would go on to marry the show's producer Russell Turner. Barbara's brother Richard was born in 1934 as Brian Moore. He was adopted from a London orphanage by Ben and Bibi in 1935. In an issue of contemporary magazine Radio Pictorial, Bibi explained how she saw Richard peering through the railings and instantly thought, a brother for Barbara. Again, Life with the Lyons made Richard a star. After the show came to an end, he had moderate success as an actor before, according to the internet, he retired from show business to go into photography and/or run a thriving antiques and interior decorating business in Kensington, London. Tremendous. Anyway, so that's the family, but how did this pair of successful Hollywood actors and their children end up in London, on the radio, and welcomed into British homes with such a great deal of fondness? Well, Bibi Daniels retired from Hollywood in 1935 after having to testify against Albert F. Holland, a 36-year-old World War I veteran with a history of stalking Daniels. Holland was under the delusion that he had attended school with Daniels and that they had married in Mexico in 1925. In 1931, he broke into Daniels' hotel room and confronted her before having to be removed by security. He was arrested and committed to the Arizona State Asylum. Holland escaped this institution in 1932 and began sending more than 150 threatening letters to Daniels before confronting her again. A lengthy trial eventually took place in Los Angeles, with Holland conducting most of his own defence, including a lengthy cross-examination of her husband Ben. Ultimately, the jury found Holland to be mentally unfit and he was committed to a psychiatric facility for an indefinite period. Bibi and Ben subsequently moved to London during the early stages of World War II when the United States was still neutral. According to an article in the Daily Mirror, they did so because of threats to kidnap their daughter Barbara. Her nurse was in league with racketeers who planned to disappear with Barbara into Mexico and hold her to ransom, Ben was reported as saying. Anyway, in 1939 the couple began their UK radio career by co-starring in a series of commercial radio shows, the Rinso Radio Review, recorded in London for Radio Luxembourg. Next came the radio show Hi Gang, as the couple travelled round Britain appearing in entertainment shows at theatres, army camps and factories in an effort to raise morale during the war. They thought of asking the BBC for a light comedy programme which would reach many more people at the same time. Most of the dialogue was written by Bibi, and she introduced a new song into every show which made fun of Hitler and the fascist anti-British propagandist Lord Haw-Haw. The show began in May 1940, coinciding with the start of the Dunkirk evacuations, and would run until 1949. When Ben enlisted into the United States Air Force, Bibi launched her own show in between series of Hi Gang. This 1943 show for the hospitalised and war-wounded was called Here's Wishing You Well Again. It was in this series that Bibi became known as Auntie-Bibi, a term that eventually became applied to the BBC itself, Auntie-Beeb. Bibi and Ben chose to remain in England throughout the days of the Blitz, which endeared them further to the British public. Although throughout the 1940s they would divide their time between the UK and the US, before finally settling for good in the UK in 1948. When asked why they did so, Bibi said they preferred the way of life in England. People were never too busy to be polite. As an aside, by the mid-1940s Ben Lyon was working for 20th Century Fox. On July the 17th, 1946, he met a young aspiring actress named Norma Jean Doherty. Instantly taken with her, he organised a colour screen test for the actress and eventually signed her to her first studio contract. Ben felt, however, a change of name was needed in order to help her make it in the big time. The young starlet reminded Ben of Broadway star Marilyn Miller, so he suggested Marilyn. Norma agreed and opted to create her new stage name by combining it with her mother's maiden name, Monroe. As a slightly less interesting aside, my research has led me to discover that Bibi Daniels was fined £3 and 5 shillings in June 1944 for not preventing her dog from worrying tame rabbits in Hyde Park. Anyway, when Hi Gang ended, life with the Lyons carried on where it left off. Situation comedies were already a success on US radio, but had yet to be tried in Britain. With the BBC giving them the green light, Ben and Bibi were joined by their children Barbara and Richard, alongside Molly Weir as their Scottish housekeeper Aggie MacDonald, Doris Rogers as nosy neighbour Florrie Wainwright, and Horace Percival as the somewhat versatile family friend Mr. Wimple. It was written by Bibi, who also got top billing, and was broadcast on Sunday afternoons, where it became known as the quickest radio success since Educating Archie. At this point, the Lyons were reportedly sending out signed photographs in the post to fans at a rate of 1,400 per week. As I've mentioned, despite the show being scripted, the nature of the situation comedy and dependency on a very real dynamic between the four family members meant it was very much a forerunner for what was to come. Be it forming the template for future domestic fictional sitcoms, such as 2.4 Children or Outnumbered, or programmes which blur the line between fiction and reality, returning us to the aforementioned Kardashians or Made in Chelsea or the Real Housewives of Port Clarence or whatever. In short, it was a show well ahead of its time and supremely popular in its day. I feel somewhat ashamed and a little saddened to admit that I'd never heard of it. But as ever, one of the delights of doing this podcast is finding out about these things and shining our little spotlight on them. Bibi Daniels suffered a severe stroke in 1963. An article in the Daily Mail, published shortly afterwards, gives an insight into both how loved the family were by the British public and the family's internal dynamic. Comedy star Bibi Daniels, weak but still wisecracking, came home yesterday to take up life with the Lyons again. Bibi, 62, who had a brain hemorrhage in May, was greeted by her miniature brown poodle Skeeter as she was carried in by a stretcherman. As she saw the flowers banked around the living room, she turned to husband Ben and said, "Oh, it's great to be home. It seems such a long time." To son Richard and daughter Barbara, she grinned, waved a shaky arm and said, "Hi, gang." She really was home. Later, with Bibi resting in a redecorated bedroom, Ben said, "She's made a remarkable recovery. I can't tell you how worried we've been. When she went into hospital, it looked as if there was no hope. Bibi had the last rites administered, but she's a fighter, and in 2 days she was talking again." Bibi spent 6 weeks on her back in London's National Hospital for Nervous Diseases, and for the past week, she's done daily exercises in the hospital's gymnasium. Neighbours leaned out of the window as the ambulance drew up to the Lyons' home, and Ben added, "I've known her sit for 26 hours straight at a typewriter, writing, rewriting and correcting just to get everything right. But now, for the first time I'm wearing the trousers in this house. I've put my foot down. She's going to rest, rest and rest again." Following the stroke, Bibi withdrew from public life. She died on the 16th of March 1971 at the age of 70. Her remains were cremated at London's Golders Green Crematorium, and the ashes returned to the United States. She was interred at the Chapel Columbarium at Hollywood Forever Cemetery. Bibi held the American Medal of Freedom, the highest award the US can give to a civilian, which she won for her war work. She was reputedly the first woman civilian to follow the troops into Normandy, working only 600 yards from the front line. Although retaining his American citizenship, Ben Lyon was made an honorary OBE. Following Bibi's death, Ben remarried. But after his death, in 1979, on board the ocean liner the QE2, where he was giving lectures on the movie business, his remains were interred next to those of his beloved Bibi.
So we're planted firmly back in the world of comedy. It's often said that the two genres that are the hardest to conquer are horror and comedy, and Hammer have had a few cracks at both of those whips throughout its complete history. But as we're only up to 1954, here's a quick recap at what comedies we've been offered so far. First, there was Sporting Love that saw a music hall act move to the big screen. Then, with Lessons Learned, it would be 14 years before their next attempts, with the trilogy of Someone at the Door, What the Butler Saw, and The Lady Craved Excitement. I can quite honestly say that all three of them had mixed results. And then the most recent attempt has been the Cesar Romero comedy thriller Lady in the Fog. Over 40 films covered and only a fist of intentional comedies. So have Hammer taken enough notes to pull it off this time? Here's Smokey, Ben, and yours truly to be as balanced as we possibly can.
All right, gentlemen, Hammer present us with a double bill, which we haven't had in a long time. We are with the Lyons. So from 1954, we have Life with the Lyons, and from 1955, we have The Lyons in Paris. This is a return to comedy for Hammer. We haven't technically been here since Lady in the Fog in 1952, although that was more of a thriller, just with comedy elements in it. But more really, our last comedy was The Lady Craved Excitement in 1950. So it's a long time, really, for Hammer to properly be away from the lighter side of film. We've been very deeply in noir territory since then. I'd like to ask you a question. Is this the right time and the right project for Hammer to dive back into comedy?
Yes, I think on both counts, to be honest. I think the hints are there in the films themselves as regards it being the right time for comedy to flourish. You know, the Second World War now is a distant memory. There are reminders of it all over the place. People are desperate to move on, I think, with their lives. And this, as we've mentioned already in the episode, this is the first sort of exposure the British people have to a sitcom. And with it becomes, you know, we've got an American family at the heart of it. So immediately you've got a kind of its own USP, its unique selling point. And I think they've chosen Hammer here a very interesting and very clever product with which to exploit two sort of motion pictures. It's sandwiched between when this was a radio show, which is how it made its name. I mean, the BB and Ben were well known before then, but this was the family made their name in this radio show before it becomes a television show. And I think they chose really wisely with this. And I think it encapsulates the mood, I would argue, of a nation that wants to laugh.
Definitely, yeah. I feel like they chose wisely as well as far as director, because this is Val Guest's first directing job with Hammer, and up to 1954, he'd already directed quite a few comedies, starting from the late 30s onwards. So he really did have his comic timing sorted, and he even drags Arthur Hill onto the set of this one, of the first one, Life with the Lyons, who plays the cowboy.
Yeah, we'll come to that. Let's start with the positives, shall we, before we get to the negatives? But you heard me. So, all right. Yeah, well, we haven't got there yet. I haven't said anything bad. Leave me alone. So, all right. Naughty step for Kev Moore. So, obviously, we'd have heard about the Lyons earlier in the episode, but let's break this down a little bit with the first film. So, we have Ben, we have BB, we have Richard, and we have Barbara. And now, so they are the Lyons, and they are in the first film, The Life with the Lyons. They are trying to move into a new house. The landlord is reluctant to... It's such a weird concept. The landlord is reluctant to give it to them until he knows that they're respectful. Is that how we're looking at this?
Yeah.
Careful.
Yeah.
Careful. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. This is the first film I've seen with Chekhov's chandelier, by the way. I mean...
At least there was a payoff. I was thinking they were going to forget all about the chandelier.
Yeah.
No. There was no way they were forgetting that chandelier. They mentioned it in the first scene in the house. It was like, right, this is going to come back to haunt them. And no, spoilers, lo and behold, yes, it does.
It pays off in dividends, doesn't it? Twice.
No.
From then on. Yeah, it does. If it wasn't for this film, we wouldn't have Only Fools and Horses. I'll put it there now.
I don't believe that in the slightest. Yeah. Although saying that, in the second film, there's a scene which is very reminiscent of "Carry On, Don't Lose Your Head." So I can't.
Very, yeah.
Yeah. You know the one I'm talking about as well. All right, come on. Let's go. Kev, we'll start with you. Life with the Lyons. Let's have some positives because I'm really going to dive into the negatives. So let's have some.
Okay. Well, because of what the research that we've done, I actually went away and listened to some of the radio shows because I wanted to get some sort of background, because the first time I watched it, I really didn't get my head around it at all. And I actually had to count how many different plot lines there are in this film. There's 16 different plot lines during this 90 minutes, just less than 90 minutes. And it's kind of jarring when you're used to a film with a narrative that's a bit stronger than it is in this film. But when you listen to the radio show, it pretty much is that. They tend to sort of spar off each other, and the way that they work, the Lyons themselves, when you're listening to it, the radio show, it seems to have a rough outline and then just gags. And the gags in this are so fast. There's so many killer one-liners, especially from Bibi towards Ben. She has some killer lines. But then there's Barbara and Richard. They spar off each other quite well as well. I mean, Barbara at one point says, "Beauty is only skin deep." And Richard says, "I know, but I haven't even had a chance to skin her yet." And I thought, great. I like that. There's some fizzing comedy in this. I really enjoyed it. It's a very light comedy. We set up with a very easy framework. And if I had a house like that size, next to Marble Arch, I'd be careful who I was letting to live there.
Yeah, I think we've got to point that out, is that that house nowadays is worth gajillions.
Yeah, easy.
Where it is in London. I mean, it's not it's going to be worth a lot then, but dear God, the amount it's going to be worth now.
The irony is as well.
Astronomical.
Yeah, the irony is as well, at one point, Ben actually mentions that he's moved them all from Chelsea. So, wow, they're really in high-flying circles.
Yeah, they really are. Yeah. Ben, what did you think to the comedy aspect of this?
Well, before I start on that, I would just add to this is another for our many chaptered canon of posh people's problems, because you've already explained how
this
expensive
is the
their
height
house
of
is. Yeah, so anything that any of the hardship they go through is to be taken with a large pinch of salt. The comedy I think it's commendable, because this is written for radio. Because B.B. Daniels, who wrote these, along with a couple of the other writers, has used the same style as she wrote for radio. So the voices are differentiated. They've all got different accents, just like we talked about when we talked about, Dick Barton. You can the characters. They have a Scottish cook. They have an old man playing their odd job man. So you can differentiate the voices. So we have a singing cowboy, or as he's described, a skating cowboy, a 7-foot drip. So. What they managed to do, though, reasonably successfully, is to try and insert some physical comedy into the script. I'm not going to say it's wholly successful, because I don't think it is, but the effort is there to differentiate it from the established product, or the people are used to, which is listening to the episodes, as Kev said. I mean, people went into this knowing who all these people were, and you've got to sort of put yourself there and think the audience will be getting a little sort of jolt of excitement when they see Wimple for the first time. Oh, look, it's Wimple. Oh, look, it's Aggie the housekeeper. Yeah. I know these people from the radio. And we're not going to get that, because these characters are all new to us. And I think you've got to give it a bit of a buy there. But rather than it just being a straight radio play, let's say they insert various different scenarios that involve more physicality. What I would say is, to wrap up on it before I hand it back to you, Smokey, is that I don't think the first film particularly manages to step far enough away from that radio format. The film is a 3-act film, and it's effectively 3 episodes of the radio program clagged together. The lines are so stark between the episodes that, going back to what Kev said, the narrative's difficult to follow, because you think, well, hang on, we're 28 minutes into an hour and a half long film, and the film's ended, and then we start a second film, and then we start a third film, and I don't think that worked really well at all. On a second and third viewing, because I have watched this 3 times, I became more sympathetic to it, and again I managed to step back a little bit away from it. But yeah, this film, for all I enjoyed it, and I really did, it's not a perfect product, and we haven't even got to talking about the second one yet, really.
We will. I suppose this is the right time to properly hold my hands up and say that I don't get on with farce and I don't get on with slapstick, and especially, forgive me, but especially old farce and old slapstick. I find it far too...
We have names.
Mugging. Far too...
Yeah, he's farce, I'm slapstick.
I'm glad you sorted it out amongst you. But I get why it's popular and I get why people do like it. For me personally, it's just not something I've ever liked. There are episodes of Frasier that do this, and that's one of my favourite shows of all time, and they're the episodes I skip. I find it embarrassing.
I understand. I understand what you mean. I really do, and I would sympathise and say that a certain elements of farce, I feel the same.
Yeah, and it's not dissimilar to why I dislike musicals, because it's this forced fun, this forced amount of you're meant to be enjoying this. Don't say Joyless Wonder. I could see you both gearing up. It's this forced feeling that what you should have, and I find that really uncomfortable to view. As I proffered to both of you about going with some positives, is that the family, the Lyon family, all have wonderful chemistry. I mean, they obviously used to working together on the radio, and so that's great, and it works. But every single joke is flagged up so early. And for me, okay, granted, if you're going to take it from the angle of escapism after a war, great, fine. But then you've got, personally, I'd rather watch a Basil Rathbone Sherlock Holmes. That for me is more of an escapism from the aftermath of war. This to me is weak, and it's a damn shame, because I think they do have talent. They are talented people, and there's a couple of gags in here that do work. But I think ultimately, again, just from a personal point of view, I can't get into it. But that doesn't make it a bad film. And that's why it's going to really make it hard for me to rate these films at the end, because I'm going to have to separate my personal things from whether it's a badly made or a well-made film. Let's talk about that. In fact, this is all shot in the UK. The sequel does have some scenes in Paris, legitimately in Paris. So, which, you got to give Hammer some credit for there. But I think it's got to return to the fact that Hammer were kind of hitting the nail on the head with noir. Okay, we've had a few missteps, but they've suddenly gone for comedy. Is this good? And bearing in mind, in the next, 3-4 films we've got coming, all back to noir again.
Yeah,
there's got to be something in there.
I just think it's too much. It obviously came along as too big of an opportunity for them to turn down. I mean, this was a huge thing at the time. The radio show was massive, and they were huge stars. And to get the opportunity to turn this into a film, and to go with effectively one of the first ever on-screen sitcoms, is quite a bold move, I think. And I take your point that you were saying as well about, because I think sometimes watching farce and I would extend it to the musicals as well, and other genres. It's a little bit of the equivalent of being asked a rhetorical question, and you kick against wanting to give the answer that they want, because you're an individual human being capable of independent thought, and you don't want to just laugh when you're told to laugh, or cry when you're told to cry, or cheer when you're told to cheer. So I do get that, and I think I'm quite contrary in other ways outside of film that we're probably talking about a similar reaction to certain things. And I think with this, a lot of there are, again, going back to I think what you've both said, there are so many gags and one-liners thrown at the screen that it's very much like a scattergun approach. That it's like some of them will hit, some of them won't, and they kind of don't seem to care if they work or not. No. Because there's lots that are well wide of the mark, and other ones that did make me chuckle a little bit. And I mean, and again, though, we're talking about a film that's 70 years old, so sensibilities have changed again, and things are not going to be funny that were at the time. But yeah, it's it's I like your what you said there, Smokey, about separating it being a decent product from something you just don't like, which I think is the most difficult way in which to judge a film as well. Anyway,
It really is.
I want to pick you up on your scattergun approach, Ben. Do you think this is possibly a hangover from how they worked in radio? Because
absolutely.
BB would,
definitely, it's got to be.
because they would create a whole show week in, week out. They'd start writing on Wednesday. They'd be rehearsing it by Monday, and then it'd be out on the following Wednesday or whatever. It'd be recorded, done. I mean, it's funny. You can see that that's kind of still there, that mania. But you think about it, they were still doing the radio show at the same time they were filming this. So
yeah. And I think that there was a tendency as well. This kind of picks up on the point I made earlier, but it sort of extends it in bearing in mind what you just said there, Kev. There was a tendency to fill every void with talking, which you've got to do on the radio. You can't leave any dead air. Where here, though, BB's character in particular talks through a lot of the jokes and offers a running commentary, and you think a little bit more restraint with the writing. It didn't need that. My favourite gag of the whole two films comes right at the end of the second film, and it's the only gag that doesn't have any sound at all. And it's where Ben says to Wimple, come in here, this looks like a phone box. And they go in, and it's obviously a public toilet. And they go in, and they come straight back out, and no one says anything. And you just think that if they could have just transplanted that subtlety a little bit more into some of the earlier script, particularly in the first film, it would have improved it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I just think if you're thinking of, so 53, 54, around that time when these were made, there are other comic movies that are so much better than this. And it's a real pity as well, is that the mugging to the camera is something that really bugs me. I mean, how many times does the lad of the family look at, or in fact, actually, no, both of the siblings look at the camera and go, or holy mackerel, or,
I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's cringe-worthy as...
I felt like Richard was underserved in this, in both films, because on the series itself...
Because he can't act.
Yes, he can.
No, he can. But his character is completely whitewashed over to a certain extent. In the radio show itself, he's much more of a blithering idiot. He doesn't know what he's saying half the time. And it's a shame that they kind of homogenized both Barbara and Richard to a certain extent, because Barbara in the show, every episode, she's got another 2 or 3 boyfriends. And they kind of say a bit towards that, but not half as much as they do in the radio show. And they get away with a lot more as well on there. But I really enjoyed watching those two together, because you could see them bouncing off each other easily.
Okay. All right, fair enough. So we have differing opinions on some of things, but I'm actually agreeing with you on a lot more than I thought I would. So I'm going to take that as a win.
Can I just before we move on? Can I just interject here with something? Because I think it's really relevant to what we've just been talking about. I think as well, Smokes, you said there about how there are many other better examples you feel of comedies around this time, but I think it's only fair the yardstick with which to measure this should be TV adaptations that have been made into films, rather than thinking, because if you think through the pantheon of British sitcoms and similar, the vast majority of ones that have been transferred to film have been absolutely awful. So Ben, I think that's a fairer comparison to me.
But Ben, they're after this. This is before any of them.
I know, that's what I'm saying. One. This is the best one. They shouldn't have made any more.
Oh, hang on.
Well, all I'm saying is when we get to On the Buses, you'll be begging to watch this again.
Mate, after watching these two, I'm begging for River Patrol again. Dear God. Well, we're obviously, I'm I'm trying to ice skate uphill here against you two.
No, it's fine now. Just as a thought, though, Smokey, as well, they do kind of reboot it, because at the opening of the film, you're actually reintroduced to everybody. You're reintroduced to all the Lyons. You're reintroduced to Maggie, is it? Aggie, the cook.
Yes, the cook.
Cook, housekeeper, everything basically. And Whipple actually reintroduces himself. I didn't have to because they're all in the series already on the radio, and they've brought them all over and sort of reintroduced everybody for a cinematic audience that might
I'm
not
glad
have known.
they did, because I had no idea who the hell they were. So I'm glad they introduced us to everyone. But I mean, that opening 10 minutes of the first film, this is it. I have a problem.
He's off.
I have a problem of car crash films or car crash TV, which is that whatever can go wrong will go wrong. I find it very lazy. So you watch something like The Office, or you watch something like Meet the Parents. Whatever can go wrong will go wrong, and I find it a really lazy way of approaching comedy. Because you know what's going to happen. You say, "Oh, you're carrying a ladder through my living room. Oh, don't hit the paint pot." And it's like, well, that's just lazy.
Did you like the money pit?
That's annoying. I forgot about the money pit. Holy crap.
What about Mouse Hunt?
The money pit in 30 years. Yeah, I just find it dull.
They didn't hit the paint pot with the ladder, though. That's not what happened.
No.
That was just a throwaway line, you cheeky. So, that's getting cut out. So I'm just saying, in the second film, we'll come properly on the second film a bit later. When she goes, "Oh, there was a paint pot on the plank," happy.
Yeah.
So it's going to get stepped on. It's going to land on someone's head. That's lazy.
I don't think it is, Smokey. I don't think that's lazy comedy at all. That's just comedy. That's you set up a joke and you get a punchline. That's
he doesn't
comedy.
like fun, Kev. He doesn't like fun.
No, I get what you mean. I know what you're saying. But you've got to remember that this is comedy that's going back 75 years now. So, it's like saying... But Laurel and Hardy, you can see jokes broadcast on. Yeah, they're jokes. You can see them coming a million miles away as well.
Are they not very good as well, Smokey? Then is that what you're saying?
Marx Brothers did comedy before this, and it was a lot sharper and better than this.
What about Laurel and Hardy? Are they not very good?
Well, they came from the silent era, so they had to work with the over embellishment, and so that's fair enough.
Well, these came from the radio, so they had to embellish the gags to make it transition into people's ears.
This is true. Hang on. In response to you, yes, I agree, Ben. I agree. And here, look, I'm not saying that every joke fails. There are some good gags in this, but I just think the vast majority of what the Lyons do is lazy. And I think it's a real shame, because I think there are two good films in here, but we just don't get to see them.
Smokey, just as now I know how you feel about Barbara and Richard, but is there any characters you particularly warm to? I'm just thinking, look on the other side of it, because for me, Wimple makes both movies. For me personally,
I agree with that.
I think that man is just such an interesting character, where he seems to be able to do anything. He knows everything.
And his missus.
Yeah. They're perfect when they're together. They're great to watch.
Yeah.
The fact that he's always, I'm the man that wears the trousers, until she actually comes into the scene and you see he's not the man that wears the trousers at all. It's fantastic.
I will fully agree with that. In that whole part about Wimple and his missus, and he is the dominant. And as soon as she has a foot in the door, it's obvious he was lying the entire time.
Yeah.
And then also when you come into the second movie, he's still trying to be the dominant, and it's like, mate, just give it up. It's not going to happen.
To a certain extent, that's the same as BB and Ben as well, isn't it? Because their dynamic seems to be the same. She seems to be the boss about the place. It's interesting to watch.
And in reality, I think, as the show was a reflection of their real domestic lives, albeit fictionalized. I think that is very much the dynamic that they had at home, from what I can gather.
I've just thought this is like a precursor for Curb Your Enthusiasm.
It's like a precursor for an awful lot of things, to be
True,
honest.
yeah.
It's way ahead of its time. Despite how dated it might feel now. That may be one of the reasons why the longevity of it didn't last, beyond the 50s, really. is that it maybe ran out of steam before an audience was ready for it. Particularly, I mean, it did manage 5 seasons on this, or 5 series on the telly though. So as well as the hundreds of radio episodes.
Yeah, first program to cross the streams as well, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Yeah,
yes, onto ITV.
Fantastic.
Okay, then, before we move on to The Lions in Paris, I think we should have a few thoughts about this film, because we've gone on very broad strokes about this. We haven't really gone into the minutiae of Life with the Lions. So, who would like to go first about sort of their overall thoughts about the film? What could have been better? What didn't kind of work? And then obviously your overall rating of the first film. Anyone would like to go first?
Yeah, I enjoyed it overall. I will caveat it with, because I've done the research to write the segment that I did earlier in the pod. I am looking through it slightly rose-tinted glasses now, because I became very fond of the family and the history of the show, and quite regretful that I didn't know more about it or anything about it going into it. So I can't step out of that and say that I'm rating this purely sort of without a little bit of emotion tinging it, particularly for this first film, which I'd probably give a 7 out of 10, I think. One thing I will say in my kind of final closing thought to this film is I very much enjoyed the addition of, there's this... the landlord, what's he called, Mr. Hemingway, has a daughter who's very, very horsey daughter called Violet, who turns up and steals every scene that she's in by being massively over the top, but is very, very enjoyable. It's almost like a whirlwind of terror. I think Richard describes her as Frankenstein with muscles, which I really like. Which, yes, I think I didn't want to go finish talking about this episode without mentioning her, because she's great.
Yeah, she's awesome.
As mentioned there by our Ben, about halfway through Life with the Lions, we're introduced to the human energy bomb of Violet Hemingway.
Hello there, I'm Hemingway. You must be Dickie Ducky's dear old mum. I'm nothing of the sort, and take your hat off in the house, young man.
Good morning, I'm Mrs. Lyons.
How absolutely withered. I've been longing to meet you. I'm Barnett. Call me Vi.
Hi, Vi.
Where's that old Dickie Ducky, eh?
He's in the dining room, I think.
Good-o. Mind if I barge in?
No, go right ahead and barge.
Whilst not in the film for very long, Violet does make something of an impression. When time has marched on, as it does, and these films are hopefully something of a distant memory for yours truly, a few things will remain in the mind. But few more than Violet. Played here by the talented and beautiful Belinda Lee. We, of course, do a fair few bios here on the House of Hammer. As we've said before, with so many of the stars of these films, it's nice to highlight their careers, when it seems so many of them just seem to have been forgotten. When it comes to Belinda Lee, personally, I knew the name, but wasn't sure why. This isn't the only time we'll be in her lovely presence either. She also crops up in about half a dozen episodes' time in Murder by Proxy. Of all the rank organisation's starlets, Belinda Lee stands out as the most notorious, yet paradoxically anonymous, British actress of the 1950s. That quote from the British Film Institute's website sums up Belinda Lee remarkably well. Born in Budleigh Salterton in Devon on the 15th of June 1935, Belinda was bitten by the acting bug at a very young age of 9 years old. Going swiftly from the Tudor Arts Academy in Surrey by way of the Nottingham Playhouse, she soon won a scholarship to RADA. She made her stage debut in 1953 when she was 18. It was while performing in a production for RADA that she was spotted by this episode's director, Mr. Val Guest. Before featuring her in her aforementioned role in Life with the Lions, she appeared alongside Frankie Howerd in his 1954 comedy vehicle, The Runaway Bus. During publicity shots for said film, Lee met photographer Cornell Lucas, and the pair would marry shortly after. In between the first Lion movie and its sequel, she was elevated to a lead role in Murder by Proxy, quite a feat considering it was only her 4th film. In 1955, Lee signed a contract with the Rank organisation. Because she was under 21, her husband had to sign it for her. Rank put her in the comedy Man of the Moment with Norman Wisdom, who at the time was the biggest comedy star in British cinema. She then made No Smoking in the same year for Tempian Films with Reg Dixon. By June of 1956, she had made 9 films. 6 of which were for rank. She said being a film star was really 90% luck and only 10% ability, and accredited her success to being at the right place at the right time. Also in June of the same year, she played Rosalind in a production of As You Like It in an open-air theatre at Regent's Park. The same month she said, "I want people to think of me as a serious actress and not just a glamour girl. It's rather hard to go from films to Shakespeare on stage. It is easier the other way around, so I left myself wide open for criticisms." Reviews for her performance were mixed, but she did receive some positive notes. But by 1957, Belinda was ranked as the 10th most popular British film star at the box office. Whilst being behind such stars as Dirk Bogarde, Peter Finch and John Mills, she was the only female to make the list. Towards the end of 1957, Lee went to Italy to play a model in the ancient world in The Goddess of Love. During the course of the shoot, she had a highly publicised romance with a married noble, Prince Filippo Orsini, head of the Orsini family. This resulted in Lee leaving her husband Lucas in September. By October, Lee told the press, "I had a strict and very ladylike upbringing. When I went to Rome, it was the first time I had been abroad on my own. It was marvellous. I even learned to swear." During filming, Italian newspapers reported that Lee had taken an overdose of sleeping pills. She said that she had been suffering from insomnia and had taken an overdose by mistake. 3 days later, Orsini was reported to have been hospitalised after slashing his wrists. Police refused to comment on the newspaper reports linking the two romantically, but Orsini, whose injuries were light, refused to tell the police why he had done it. The Vatican said that Orsini would lose his title of papal prince if it were proven that he had attempted suicide. And indeed, the elderly Pope Pius XII did remove Orsini and the Orsini family from their hereditary position of prince assistant to the papal throne. The Pope also made a speech condemning suicide, which was thought to be a reference to the Orsini-Lee scandal, although neither were named. By 1959, the sheen had worn off of showbiz for Belinda Lee. Disillusioned with a business that just wanted her to play sex pots and arm candy, she had decided that she just didn't care anymore. She said at the time, "Now all the time I make films, one after the other. It won't last, but for now I'm in demand. I might as well cash in on it. For the first time I'm making money. All I'm asked to play now are wicked women. On the continent I'm thought of always in connection with parts like that. Bit of a change from the old rank orgy. But I'm not ambitious anymore. I don't care to be a big star. I used to be so ambitious. Now it means nothing to me. Now I just want to make some money, so I can live the way I want to." In March of 1961, Belinda and 3 male Italian friends were driving from Las Vegas to Los Angeles. The car was reportedly going more than 100 miles an hour when one of the tires blew, causing the car to skid violently. She was found more than 60 feet from the vehicle and was pronounced dead when she was taken to Barstow Community Hospital. She was aged just 25 years old. A brief career, tragically cut short. Belinda Lee made a quick impact on the world of entertainment, and while towards the end of her working life, she really didn't seem to want the fame or attention, it is somewhat nice to know that she is still making an impression all these years later.
She kind of comes into every scene like a hurricane, doesn't she?
Very much so, yes.
Yeah. Kev, your thoughts about the film? The first film?
My thoughts, wow. Like Ben, I came into it cold, watched it and thought, wow, there's a lot going on here and I don't know whether I can get on with this at all. I kind of got into the groove of it. Once you get used to the tempo of how everything's working, it kind of becomes more of a viewing experience sort of halfway through. I hate to say this, but it's like when you go to watch Shakespeare, for the first 30 minutes of the play, you are looking at it and going, what are they saying? And then suddenly it clicks and you can really get yourself into the way that the language is used. And it's the same way with this. You kind of get halfway through and you click and you go, oh, right, I'm into the groove now. And I quite enjoyed it then. But there's some lovely bits that are just thrown out. They throw them out like darts. They're crazy. I mean, there's Ben when he actually name drops Marilyn Monroe by saying, I could make one of your books into a film of your story. And he says something like, I'll get Rita Hayworth or Jane Russell or Marilyn Monroe. And you think, yeah, you've name dropped that because you named Marilyn Monroe. Nice one. And then, of course, Aggie says, yeah, I hate films, especially that Hell's Angus. That's the last time I actually went to see a film. So there's some lovely little bits, but they don't land when you first watch it, because unless you actually do your homework first, you're only getting half the story, and it's a shame because I wish there'd been more films of these than there is just these two. And as far as I know, a lot of it's lost as well, the TV episodes. I'm not exactly sure how many is surviving. I don't know whether you've seen anything, Ben.
3, I think. 3 or 4. No,
really?
It's not many. It's single figures. It's in the segment that I did, but I can't remember off the top of my head.
No, me neither. 40 or 50 episodes they did as well, which is a shame that you're not going to see that.
40 episodes they made.
Yeah, crazy, isn't it? But then there's some great lines like, don't just stand there, answer the chandelier, which I loved the surreality of that. That was fantastic. So, yeah, I did enjoy it more once I'd actually gone back and dug into the Internet Archive and listened to some of the shows and realised what you were dealing with. When I went back to it yesterday and again today, I thought, yeah, this is a hell of a lot better than I was actually giving it the credit for on the first watch. So I'm going to give it, I was going to originally give it 6, but now knowing what I do, it's actually more of a more rounded film, so I'm going to give it 8.
Wow. I mean, love you guys, but you're so wrong. So anyway, right, what this film really is utter crap. So no, I'm really joking. It's just not for me. I can't get past the farce and the slapstick. It feels forced. It's embarrassing. I hated watching it more than once. I want to watch River Patrol on a loop to watch any of these again. The chemistry between the main actors is good. There are a couple of really uncomfortable moments between all of them, which have not aged well, between father and daughter and mother and son and brother and sister and all that. I thought that was weird. The jokes come so fast that 9 out of 10 of them fall flat and 1 out of 10 of them actually sticks. I think it's lazy slapstick comedy, and I didn't enjoy this at all. However, you guys have convinced me on some of it that it's actually a little bit better than I thought. So I've got to give it a little bit of credit. The set looks good. The score, whilst intrusive, is very good. So yeah, I will actually give it an extra point. So I'm giving it a 3 out of 10. You've pushed it up, lads, to a 3 out of 10 for Life with the Lyons, because this is diabolical and it's one of the worst Hammer films we've seen. So yeah, absolutely dreadful.
No.
But
no,
yeah, no. My opinion, not fact. My opinion
is wrong.
So, No. So we'll go back to Whispering Smith if you want, Sonny Jim. So
no,
we need to move on to the sequel of The Lions in Paris. We now move on to 1955 with The Lions in Paris. So we actually have a plot, gentlemen. We actually have a plot, which we didn't have in the first film, but we actually do this. We didn't really touch on it very much in the for the first film, which is that the first film was broken down into 3 kind of half-hour sketches. That was pretty much the formula for that film. Didn't matter if they made any sense or not, that's what they did. They've done it again for The Lions in Paris, but it makes a lot more sense this time. There's actually a bit of peril at the start, there's a reason for them to end up in Paris, and then there's a denouement.
Yeah.
And that, for me, straight away makes this film a lot better than the first. A rare occasion of a sequel being better than the original. This is the Terminator 2 and the Aliens of Lyons movies.
It's the Empire Strikes Back.
Exactly. This is the Empire Strikes Back of Lyons movies. So before I go on, I have just had a head shaking from Ben for the entire time I've been talking. Why? Why are you shaking your head at me, Beniel?
No, it wasn't for the entire time that you were talking. It was just it was the comment about it being better than the first one, because I just don't think it is. But that said, let me explain my reasoning. I do agree that this is more of a film, and yes, you're right. The 3-act structure is still there within this one, but they cement over, ironically, because there was lots of cement in the first film. They cement over the cracks nicely to make it a smoother, rolling, undulating narrative rather than a stop-start. As you said, here's the end of an act, here's a different story. This does that, but it does it much smoother. There isn't the abrupt endings to it, which I think shows some evolution as BB writing it, and and transferring this product to the screen rather than the radio. What I would say is that the plot that they've chosen, I think, isn't the best one to showcase their talents. True. But I will bookend what I'm saying. We're going back to giving it a positive, which is saying when you see the title The Lions in Paris, you think, oh God, it's one of them sequels where they're just going to pluck the family up and they're going to plop them in an unfamiliar, Mr. Bean Goes to Paris or whatever it is. They're going to like chuck them into an unfamiliar... Yeah, exactly. Or, Lost, it's Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. It's the same... exactly. It's the same story, but in a different place. But in fairness, that isn't what they do. They spend the first 35, 40 minutes establishing a reason for the Lions to be in Paris, and then we see the journey, and we see, I would agree. I'm not just going to disagree with that as well. I would say it probably is too long, but I'm going to give the film a credit. They write a sequel that is a film in its own right and isn't just a sequel to the first film. And
agreed.
Technically, it's a better film, but it's not a better film.
I'm loving your using the inverted commas for film. Thank you.
Film. I wasn't as much of a fan of this one. I don't mind admitting that.
I win.
I'll
only in your own mind.
I probably agree with you.
That's where I live.
I'll probably agree with you on this. The fact that this seems to be easier to get into than the first one, but funnily enough, after watching this again today, I don't feel it works as well as the first one does for comedy. That's the only thing. And that's why this is actually kind of a disappointment for me as far as The Lion's concerned. But it does have a llama descending stairs and monkey trousers. So, you kind of give it bonus points for that.
It does. I mean, it's pick and choose, isn't it? About who to get annoyed about the most. I mean, in the first film, you've got that singing cowboy who you just want to kill, and then in this one,
Slim Cassidy.
Come on, let's talk about Slim Cassidy.
Slim Cassidy.
For a minute, we didn't mention...
I don't want to.
Let's try and work out how many verses he had in that song.
At least 27 of his Texan tunes.
So annoying.
It was the Iliad.
God, I muted that on the second go.
Do you know he's in the Andromeda Strain?
I don't care. I hope he's never in anything ever again. Because
I don't remember a singing cowboy in that, Kev.
He died pretty early.
Was he the disease?
Good. Oh, he was radiation on a guitar. He was. Oh God! But what my point was that we shift away from the annoying American cowboy in the first film to in the second film. We have an existentialist Frenchman who just wants to bug the crap out of everyone and steal everything.
Slim Cassidy's annoying, but I didn't want to physically fight him like I did the Frenchman.
Oh, I did.
You'd rather have a fight with Slim Cassidy than the Frenchman.
He's 7 foot tall.
I just mean, which one would you rather spark out if you could?
I'm going to double down on that, my friend, and I'm going to take them both on at once because I reckon I could have them both.
Well, you've got two hands.
I do have two hands, and they're both wet nurses, so I could take those. So, whilst the second film has a better plot, it's still a mess. It's a mess, just like the first film. There's a scene. They go to a rustic French diner, and how long does that scene last? Too long is the answer I was wanting from both of you. And it didn't come.
I was trying to work it out. It was
Too long.
No, that's too long.
I'm sorry, was Inspector Clouseau in there? But
he's not been well.
That's weird. It's those monkey trousers.
You're both attacking me here, but I get it that you preferred the first film, and I get that fine. But you apparently like this film more than me, even though it doesn't sound it at the moment.
No, I feel like it's possibly the involvement of Val Guest that has really gelled this, because he's missing as far as the writing department on the first one. He's not involved with it in the first. The second one, he's doing the screenplay as well. So he's used to doing long-form comedy films. So he's able to kind of go in and say, look, yeah, you need to try and make it less episodic, make it less like a Simpsons movie.
I think my biggest issue, and Smokey, just try and remain calm until I finish what I'm saying. I think my biggest problem with the second film is it's too stupid. Is that in the first film, it's you get the slapstick set up in a domestic sitcom situation. It's all basically set in the house, and it's a bit of a daft house of stupid ongoings. Here, it's just like, not to ruin the plot for anyone who hasn't seen it, but we work our way through, as you say, the French existentialist philosopher thief, a bar fight. The monkey in trousers, the llama coming down the stairs. It ends up with a duel, having a duel with a Frenchman over a glamour model, and it's all just.
Did they do that in the 50s?
I don't think they did. No, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that even France had moved on.
No, it was still the Lear.
But it just feels like a desperate pursuit of scenarios that they didn't need to invent.
Yeah. There are many problems. There are many problems.
Yeah, I've got two.
Sorry, Kev got me there with that. Starting with what Kev said, there are many problems with this film. I mean, also is that at the very beginning of the film, when they get on the ferry, is that supposedly the Lyons are the only ones battered by the rain. Everyone else is stood outside having a smoke, just having a chat, and yet 2 foot away from them, the Lyons are being battered by rain, which was a ridiculous thing to start the film off with.
Well, that could be because they're American.
I love the fact that you say start the film off. That's 45 minutes into the film.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yes.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah. Oh, my God, yeah, it is. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, but
that's my word.
Saying that as well, when they're loading the ship up, you get a lot of comedy value from that car.
You do, car. It's like
the falling apart car.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's very much a Brum. But you get the whole car falling apart in France. You get it falling apart at the dock. You get it falling apart. There's a great bit of visual gimmickry in this where they've got the little sticker on the dashboard that says "Save fuel and beat the Kaiser," and that that kind of nails how old this car is. It's very much an heirloom, isn't it? This car.
My favourite car bit, Kev, is when he can't get it started and he opens the engine and it's full of pigeons. I laughed there.
What the hell was that?
That was funny.
It was
found my level
My
with the pigeon joke.
My favourite bit was opening the bathroom door and the penguins waddled out.
That was brilliant.
That was good. Yeah. Everyone loves a penguin.
Everyone loves a penguin.
Not so much in your bathroom.
You got to see monkeys.
Yes,
Exactly, monkeys, llama. It was all happening.
Yeah, crazy. Surprise camel.
Surprise, the best kind of camel. One hump or two.
Camel. Yeah. What do we think of the plot with the French, songstress, the dancer, who dad and the son both fell in love with, and that's where all this kicks off. Is that good?
I thought it was really well scripted. I thought it was really well set up. We were talking about Farce a while ago, and this is where Farce works. If it's cleverly enough written, it's a very intricate thing, and it has to work. It's like watching a puzzle box. You've got to be able to see how it works and see it actually clicking over. And this is brilliant for doing that. I think this works a lot better than the first film that they do. And it's a great way of setting up what happens later on, especially when you get the payoff with the crazy, good-looking woman in the boat at the end, which, again, is a payoff for two plots as well.
It
so,
is,
it's very intricate, yeah.
No, I mean, if you've got Chekhov's chandelier in the first one, you've got Chekhov's stunner in the second one. And I did think when the boat drifts into view at the end, because for the sake of the listener, this plot revolves around an accusation that Ben is having an affair with this young woman, which he isn't, and that's the nature of the farce. But the final shot of the film is this reveal that he can't possibly be because she's on this boat with another man. And it kind of floats into view. And I was just waiting for the end music from Hello, Hello, because that's exactly how it felt in that particular scene. And not just because it was set in France, it just had that kind of comedic payoff.
I do like the fact that the last you see of the French existentialist and the model is them they're getting shot at. That's the last you ever see of them. You don't know if they live, you don't know if they die. Yeah. Oh, by the way, we have encountered Captain Legrand before, quite recently. He was in The Curse of the Demon, or Night of the Demon, whichever you wish. So he's in the trees, man. So who knew? But obviously he's very tiny and he has a very huge moustache in this. And he was my favorite part about this film because he had great comic timing, and he was just annoyed that his business was going off with two men. So yeah, he was my favorite bit.
At least.
I'm trying to think.
Well,
Reginald Beckwith was in one of the noirs as well. I'm sure it was one of the early ones.
Whispering Smith.
Right, yes, that was it. Yeah, he had a really good role in that. It was very meaty because he was the one that was set up for the blackmail. He was fantastic in that.
Yeah. I mean, it's lovely. I mean, forget about everything else, but it's lovely that we meet all these character actors in various other bits and pieces. You know, it's great. You know, we've come across, you know, everyone from Pullman to Joan Hickson and everyone else. You know, we just come across these people, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, it's strange as well when you think that the last time we saw him, he had such a meaty role with such pathos. In this, he's walking up a flight of stairs with a monkey in trousers with a great big Wazatash. It's brilliant. What did you do today, love? Well, you'd not believe.
The duel scene with the fake guns was annoying.
Yeah, the whole ending of the film was annoying, other than until the boat drifted into view. I didn't enjoy.
Explain
I didn't enjoy
that.
the last.
Why?
I think I already have. I just think it's too stupid. It takes these characters out of, regardless of whether it's meant to be a sort of a fantasy farce in the first film. We're not meant to believe that they can get into situations that are kind of otherworldly, which is what we were getting towards the end, or at least I didn't think that we were. You know, I just didn't think there was any need for that. It almost admits that they're not clever enough writers to do it in a slightly more believable setting. So you've got to introduce ridiculous, outlandish things like, you know, a hotel room full of animals and a little Frenchman who settles all his arguments by having a 15th century duel at dawn. It all just becomes a bit like,
that was weird,
daft for the wrong reason. And I kind of checked out after the thing in the Parisian underground cafe, where you just thought, as you said, the scene went on far too long, and you just thought, well, this is not. It doesn't feel like a Lyons film, even though I've only been exposed to 1.5 films and what I know from the radio show and what I've read. It doesn't feel like the same product, and I do wonder whether it was those choices that were the reasons why we never got a third one. I just don't know. I'm just spitballing, as they say.
Yeah.
But
I agree.
I didn't enjoy the second half of this film at all.
I liked the weirdness of a jazz club where they go to this subterranean coal hole and everybody's dancing really crazily to virtually no music. It sounds like it's coming from a Walkman in the corner of next door.
Yeah, and it also, as I said, it went on far too long. We were in there. I mean, I was delighted when I finally found out this film was 80 minutes long and not 92 minutes long that my the time counter told me on the film. But yeah, this dragged in so many places. I'll tell you what, I'm going to go first on this, on the rating and review, because we're done. We're done with
we are.
Lions.
Yeah.
You've done it again. You guys have done it again about changing my score, because last episode you moved it up a point. This episode you've moved it down a point. This is actually worse than I thought.
Balance.
So I'm going to stick with the 3 on this. I think this is pretty dreadful. Yeah, again, scattershot approach. Throw out 10 jokes, 1 joke sticks. That's not good enough for a comedy. Chemistry's there, it's great. Again, the score's good when you aren't deafened by it. But no, it's a pretty poor film. So yeah, it's another 3 from me. I didn't like either of these films. Can you tell? I didn't like either of these. So Ben, how about you for the Lions in Paris?
Yeah, my score's been a bit up and down for this one as well. On the first viewing, it was lower than this score's that I'm going to give it. It's been higher as well, but now I'm settling on something in the middle. I enjoyed the first half, or the first third, probably, and then it went rapidly downhill after that. I like watching these actors. I like watching the dynamic that they all have together, but I didn't like the plots that they created for them here. So I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10. Which, I think is maybe a little harsh, but, I struggle to give it higher than that as a film in its own right.
Fair enough. Kevy?
Bizarrely, I'm kind of echoing you two because I felt when I first watched these two together that this was the better of the two films, but going back subsequently, it's actually lowered. And I think it doesn't help that it's got a very strange anti-French sentiment that's still alive now, I know, but it seems awfully out of step, and it kind of gets a bit jarring sometimes. But then you think, well, I mean, even as recent as The Simpsons, they've done a notorious take on the French that I'm not going to repeat here. But then there's some really wonderful bits as well. Like, I can understand why the French adopted the euro, because the size of a 10 million franc note is the size of a sleeping bag.
I love that gag as well. I've only come here to change my 10 million franc note, because I'm fairly certain he didn't have a 10 million franc note, but I did enjoy that gag very much.
Yeah, Wimple again, and he just comes in with some humdingers. Also, I don't know whether you appreciated the silent scenes, but I certainly enjoyed them. There was a couple of silent montages, and the first one when they're actually packing to leave and Wimple comes out with his kids, and you realise that Wimple's got about 28 children. And I'm like, wow, that guy is just such a hero for all the weirdest reasons.
No wonder his wife hates him.
Yeah, I say, don't come near me with that thing again.
So how about a rating, Kev?
For me, it's just a 5 on this one. It's nowhere near. It's not got the quotable lines. That's the thing that's missing from this. The first one had so many zingers that you could hardly keep track. This one is virtually free of them, which is a shame.
So let's have a few final thoughts about the Lions. I mean, I know you said, Ben, you wish you could see more, really, after this one?
Yeah, I do. I would, as I say, I enjoy the heart and the warmth that's at the core of it. I think the show, taking it in its historic context, is a remarkable piece of writing and a very forward thinking, as I said, piece of entertainment. And I think it could only have evolved and got better over time, particularly with a chance to maybe sit back a couple of years after this one and maybe I mean, once they'd written more for television and had a couple of series, it would have been interesting to see maybe in the late 50s or even sort of at the end of the TV run what might have happened, particularly as I imagine broadcasting on ITV brought slightly different sensibilities to broadcasting on the BBC might have done as well. But yeah, we'll never know. I certainly don't ever want to see a reboot unless it happens to be set in the 1950s, which would be blooming expensive to do.
Where's Netflix when you need it?
Yeah.
Comedy, comedy, comedy. Luckily for some, it'll be a while before we pay another visit to the world of movie Marmite, and even longer before we see another sitcom brought to the big screen by Hammer. That's I Only Asked from 1958, a big screen spin-off from The Army Game. Following the success of their 1971 big screen spin-off of On the Buses, Hammer would look to other sitcom hits, and The Rag Trade Goes Mad was proposed. The Rag Trade aired between 1961 and 1963 and starred Peter Jones, Reg Varney and Miriam Carlin. And to cash in on Varney Mania, a big screen reboot of The Rag Trade was on the cards. But as the series was over a decade old, it was shelved, and a further 2 On the Buses films were made instead. Woohoo! In a weird twist, The Rag Trade was eventually revived by ITV in 1977. This time without Reg Varney, but with the addition of his On the Buses co-star Anna Karen, who reprised her role as the gormless Olive from the series. The reboot again co-starred Peter Jones and Miriam Carlin. Through the early 70s, Hammer would turn to such long-running ITV favourites as Nearest and Dearest, Love Thy Neighbour and Man About the House. And surprisingly, in 1972, they also decided to transfer That's Your Funeral from the BBC. It's a comedy that only ran for one series in 1971. But all this is looking far into the future, so for now, let's return to 1954 and just take a breath and think about where we are. The subsequent box office successes of the Lyons adventures were considerable, and as a direct result, the company's future was looking very bright indeed, at a time when many other big British film industry names were failing. So with that, the next stop on our journey sees us park up by the lake to look at the house across it and wonder why they're having problems with their postman ringing twice as well. Till then, it's goodbye from
Ben Tillison,
Smokey,
and me, Kev Moore.